Good afternoon and welcome to Tuesday, September 4th working session. This is our budget working session. Some years we've done more than others. And the intent is today to bring forward any potential amendments or have those conversations, talk about the unfunded obligations, as well as get clarification on other projects or other questions we had. And I know that there was one department asked to come forward. And so starting there, I'll remind you all that the budget, the first notice will be on September 11th, and then the following week is when the budget hearing will be put on the agenda for that. But the whole budget is the City Council's budget. I know we're talking about $100,000 today, but as you're all aware, that that is not just the only limitations that we have here that we've talked amongst ourselves. So with that said, we are going to kick off the first area of amendments. If we want to talk about any possible amendments, if anybody has anything like that. And I'll remind you that this is a working session, so it's really designed to be more laid back, more casual. Anyone have anything that they'd like to discuss for the amendments? Otherwise, I'm going to move to the next area I'm going to move to is the community development. We've had some questions on that one, and so we'll start with questions for community development. I know Adam Roach is here today. If you would like to just introduce yourself and maybe start off.
Sure. Adam Roach, Neighborhood Services Coordinator, here to address any questions related to this packet in front of you.
I know we literally just sat down, so we're still all getting a little bit organized here.
We're getting acclimated here. Okay, so Adam, if I can go first here.
Go
Yes,
ahead.
ma'am.
Yes. So, and we're all just kind of learning along the way, but you and Mr. Cooper, Director Cooper, gave your budget address a few weeks ago, and so I was hearing that you were doing this community outreach effort, and that you're wanting to increase the funding to almost $200,000 for the next budget. So what I asked you during that discussion was, what specifically had you been using that money for? And I do recall we talked at the time that you said it wasn't for salaries, and that because I was concerned that you were getting paid to go to these neighborhood association meetings. And then I said, well, are we buying food with that? And you said no, paper products. So since then, our budget analyst, Dave Bixler, has done a very nice job of kind of breaking some things down for us. So is there something you want to say up to this point?
Well, sure. I was a bit confused about what was being presented, the $200,000 versus the $170,000, and I did not know that I was too roped into that figure. What I was asked to speak on was the grant program. So that's what I thought I was speaking on, the increase from the $8,000 to the $50,000. So
right.
that's what I was referencing.
You understand that wasn't what was in our packet, though. It didn't have
afterwards.
That
yes.
broken down.
Correct. Yep. And then I thought we had an opportunity to discuss some different things, and
that's why I more and more I think we need to be discussing these things in public, because it's the public's money.
Yep,
it's the
absolutely.
public's business. And so we talked about, you said that your salary was $70,000 approximately out of that.
yeah.
Okay, so that's included in this amount. You're included in this whole thing we're getting, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
and so then what we had was, and I got to find this thing from, I just got this packet from Mr. Bixler. Dave, would you happen to have that first cover letter that we... It was on the front of that email. Does that have the two breakdowns of the years? Yeah. Okay, here it is. That is not, where you had the two, with the 127,000? I don't have that one. That was the cover letter. Okay, that was, can we get a copy of that as we're talking about some other thing? I'd like to have that, please. So anyway, it went from, and we'll get the document here that he's going to bring, but it went from, it increased, you had an increase that you wanted like $23,000 in that salaried part. Can you tell us?
I'm not familiar with any of that component of it. My role within the budget is very minuscule, where I'm basically told how much funding I have allocated for different programs. So I'm not down in the minutia on salaries and things like that. So perhaps
Right. Well,
Mr. Huber
Tom
could
can address it if you'd like.
address
Tom,
that.
come forward.
Tom, okay. It'll be better when we have that up there. But I guess when we're being asked to increase budgets here, to increase amounts of money, so when it says it's for salaries, I'm like, well, are we adding another person? Is this all going to Adam, 127,000? And he has a salary of 70,000 and we're giving him 127?
Tom Huber with Finance Office.
You could just move the microphones apart a little bit. We get feedback from, thank you.
Tom Huber with the Finance Office. If you go to page 80 in your budget book, you'll see a program in there called Community Outreach. That's the program that we're talking about for where Adam is budgeted out of, and then where that 50,000 is budgeted. So there's really only two parts to that. There's a small piece of technology in there. It's very small, but there's the 50,000 that we talked about for the program support, and then the rest is salary, wages, and benefits. And the reason for the change is no personnel were added, but there was a reallocation with economic development being reorganized, and then this coming under planning, where now, Adam was like 50% allocated. Now he's 100% allocated to this program. And there were some other wages and salaries for the technical clerk and another person in the economic development office that were allocated there. Those no longer are allocated there. So there's no change in personnel. It's just a change in allocating that into the correct programs of where they're spending time. We try to do our best with payroll to make sure that we allocate personnel into the right program to where they're spending their time. This doesn't include any other external personnel, police, or other people that may be involved with the program, but it's strictly within the Planning and Development Services budget. So I hope that helps.
Well, no, it really doesn't, because again, so the 127, do you happen to? Yeah, zoom in, please. Or not there. And then move it over so we can see that increases. So it's an increase of 27. So we got the 90,000, and then it's going up to 117. Again, Tom, you're saying it is another person in there, or why wouldn't it just stay? Why wouldn't it stay 90 then?
That's just wages and benefits because we didn't allocate this position 100% to this program. Now it's allocated 100% to this program, and it includes wages and benefits. So it's all in. It includes wages and benefits.
So this is for one person, 117.9. Just, I'm not certainly not trying to say we shouldn't pay his health insurance and give him
it's all,
IRA or whatever we're doing for our employees, but that's all for one person.
That's all in. And it's like I said, it's wages, it's got benefits in there. There's a difference between if you're an SD, SDRS program or the city pension program, and it's got health insurance, it's got all benefits in there. So it's an all-in number.
And that position, so Adam, what is his designated, what are his duties within the program?
I probably wouldn't be the one to answer about the
Maybe
duties,
Adam
but
can tell us.
It's specific to this program.
Right, and that's, so for our 90,000, what are we getting?
So the question is, what do I do
Yes.
on a daily basis? I facilitate the city's grant program, the sidewalk use program, the city's facade easement program. I'm a utility guy for any kind of community challenges that we have in coordination with the police department, which includes our parks, which can include drive-by shootings, which includes working with the University of Sioux Falls and our partnership we have with them, the University of or Augustana College and the partnership that we have with them, and a multitude of other roles throughout the community.
And
I think if it would be Erica Beck, Chief of Staff, I think if it would be helpful, what we can do is send you his job description, because then you'll all have the same information so that you know exactly what it is that he's tasked with doing for our citizens. The other thing that I would just say with respect to this budget, it was a little different because we realigned the departments. So the way that we communicated it to you is probably slightly confusing, so I apologize for that. But it does include all aspects of community outreach or neighborhood outreach. Adam has been running a grant program or administering a grant program for the neighborhoods for several years, of which he's here today to talk to you about with respect to the successes that that program has had. I think since 2013, is that right? Since 2013, so he can definitely do that as well. But with respect to his salary and benefits, I don't know many city employees that can break that down, in detail, so I apologize for that, but we can get additional information on that from HR for this group as well, if that's necessary.
Okay, so, well, that's kind of and I'm sorry, Adam, I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but this did kind of catch my eye when we were talking about it. And so then we come to the grant part. Now, and once again, I'm deeply grateful to our budget analyst, Dave Bixler, because he came through and we didn't make this for everybody, but we sent emails out so you all have all these invoices. So I have been a neighborhood watch captain since 1997. I've never heard that there was a grant that I could apply for. Okay? And so I'm looking over what we've done here.
Yep.
And again, I think this is really good for us to kind of dig into the weeds here to see what actually is being allocated. But I had a few questions about this. We have, to Mr. John Paulson, we've got a flagpole. Apparently there was a whole flagpole project for $2,000. It says $5,000 and then it's got $2,000. I'm not sure how much he got for it.
They received an allocation award of $2,000.
Okay, and where is...
For the flagpole project, it's a competitive process. There's a sample grant application in the back that people submit to our office. They pay for the costs up front for these projects, and we go on a reimbursement basis. So what they are allocated in the initial award is what they will receive if they submit us the proper receipts and documentation, and then it is reimbursed through our finance department.
So where is that flagpole?
That flagpole is in McKinnon Park.
It's in the park itself?
Correct. Yep,
Okay.
It's a public enhancement.
And then another thing that kind of caught my eye was you have an association that had what's the Cran Bounce House?
What association are you referencing?
Gateway, is it Galloway?
The Galway Park, that was a community building event that they hosted in conjunction with the neighborhood.
And so they had a Cran Bounce House, a bubble bumper slide, obstacle course, a generator that would keep it going. And I think they got, $452.
So what page are you looking at so we can make sure we're working off the same?
I'm not sure what, it's just an invoice that says that they got, the total was 452. E3.
Yep. And then that's for the community building event that they had at Galway Park. That's something that we've supported in the past, and it's newer neighborhood associations to spur activity and garner participation. It's to hold community functions like that, and these are all hosted on behalf. The association can apply for these grants through the city, and then if we deem that there are merits for what they're being asked to fund, then we will support those.
Well, and there was a lady here who she put in one of those little libraries.
Yep, and these are not.
She wasn't necessarily an association
Yes,
person.
she is. Yep,
Okay,
she's with the the Misty Glen Mobile Home Park community.
Okay.
Yep, and they are an association and an active crime watch.
So I guess you're going to be asking for 50,000, and I know I've talked to some of my colleagues, and we feel that maybe there should be a little more of a continuity or an even playing field for people, maybe make it more broadcast, more of an awareness in our community that we're offering this money, and then maybe have a cap on how much they're going to get.
Yep, and there currently is a cap within the program, and all the program details are found in the application.
What is the cap?
It's $2,000, but this past year we did award a larger project for up to $6,000 because we found that there is a identified need out there for larger funding for larger projects for what the city can capture.
Which project was that?
We awarded the Galway Park Neighborhood Association for landscape enhancements at Galway Park.
Okay, so I'd like to maybe break this open to neighborhood watch groups and open it up to our whole public, because it is tax dollars that we're using.
Yep,
to help
and this is
people.
specifically designed for our neighborhood associations this started in 2011 in terms of our neighborhood association programming.
I get that, but I think now we've got lots of needs within our community, and it's taxpayer money, so I want to make it a fair and equitable program for everybody.
Yep, and I work with Planning and Building Services. These are conversations that Officer Johnson and I have discussed, a few years back on whether or not he should open things up for a grant program. What would that?
Can I ask a question off of what you said too? The Galway Park one was awarded for landscaping. Now that's a city park, right?
Correct.
So
Yep.
why are we that seems really interesting to me. I'm just
Yep.
going to say, it seems really odd that we are having these associations ask for money to put in our city parks with our own tax dollars. I mean, it's just...
Yeah, I agree.
Looks
So
weird.
the premise of the grant association or the grant program is participatory budgeting that we're seeing all across the United States. And that's where cities are allocating or setting aside funding for community projects that are identified by the neighborhoods and the neighbors themselves. Rather than a guy in City Hall in the corner office thinking that he knows what the neighbors need, I'm out there shaking the trees on asking these individuals, what do you need? What are the enhancements that your community needs? We lit up front porches and alleyways in the Whittier neighborhood before Bishop Dudley came through. That's one of the projects that we did because that was an identified need by the neighbors. We did the same thing with the All Saints neighborhood. We worked with the West African Community Association with their community garden. Although they don't have a geographic neighborhood boundary within our community, we know that they are an association because of their community of West African folks within the city of Sioux Falls here. So it hits on an array of different projects, but it's essentially small-scale participatory budgeting that you're seeing all across the nation.
Gotcha. I just, when you said that, I was like, whoa, wait a minute here, as we talk about that. Do we have other questions, Councilor Neitzer?
Yeah, so as I was looking through this today in the last few hours, it is kind of interesting. So there was $8,000 allocated for this year?
Correct.
And none has been reimbursed?
None has been reimbursed. We did not offer the grant program this year. We have 22 neighborhood associations, and it's very difficult to give money away, and let alone to give $8,000 away between 22 neighborhood associations. And so what we're looking at this year is how can we impact all 22 neighborhood associations with a small amount of money? And whether that be a neighborhood building event, we were waiting for the new administration to come on to see what Mr. Mayor Ten Henken or whoever that would have been to come on and see what they want to do with our neighborhood associations. Do they want to have a summit? Do they want to have a neighborhood block party? Or lately that we have discussed a neighborhood notification system where you're able to put your contact information in and then you are notified of a rezone, a house being raised, things of that nature, so we have people more engaged in the process.
Gotcha.
So, okay, and I have to say, I don't know, my daughter loves bouncy houses, but I'm just kind of going, I don't know. I mean, I could see something tangible, like planting trees in the park or something like that, but, hiring a balloon guy and having that be reimbursed with city tax dollars, What's the thought process here?
Yep, and so they're all case by case, on a case by case basis. Newer neighborhood associations, we are more inclined to support a social event. And we're not going to sit there and fund bouncy houses every year, but if your neighborhood association wants to have a bouncy house in the park, and that's going to bring community get together, and we're going to send out a flyer to all those people in your geographical area to garner more participation and build community, then that's what we generally will do.
So, okay.
But I've had the question, like, hey, me and my neighbor Tom want to start an association to apply for your grants. Well, how are you engaging your entire neighborhood? And, there's a lot of questions that come with that as well.
Well, so if I'm not a neighborhood association, there's a lot of little kids on my block. I can't get reimbursed for a bouncy house.
If you're a registered neighborhood association with the city of Sioux Falls, and that's on page 4 of your packet, where neighborhoods apply to be a registered neighborhood association with the city of Sioux Falls and are eligible to apply for the grant funding. When we first started the programming, the thing that we found is what brings people together is projects, and talking with a national expert over a series of exchanges and visiting a national neighborhoods conference. That's what I saw, is projects bring people together, they build community, celebrations. Instead of having a meeting, have a party. That's how you get people to show up. And that's the page that we took out of Mr. Jim Deere's book in 2013 and started our own grant program similar to the one that's in Seattle, the one that's in Idaho, Boise, Idaho. They're all across the nation now. And it's essentially a participatory budget form.
Yeah, and I did learn about participatory budgeting, and I did see some neat things at the National League of Cities of getting people together to beautify them. Let's say they all get together and do plantings in their boulevard or something like that. That's tangible. I guess maybe it's fine. I'm just got to think about it. So as far as making sure that these tax dollars are being used wisely and that we don't have any abuse or fraud, so how much vetting is there that, if they said that they bought 2,000 paper plates, that they bought 2,000 paper plates, or that the bouncy house, guy didn't charge half the price and they didn't pocket half the money? I mean, those sorts of things.
Yep, so I take a look at the receipts that come in. I look at their proposed budget that they initially sent to me. And if they're not sticking to those budget numbers, they have to come up with the funding on their own.
Okay, I'll defer for now.
Councilor Kiley. Yep, Councilor Kiley.
Okay, thank you. So in other words, you're not just issuing them a blank check.
Correct.
That they can spend any way they want. There's checks and balances.
There are checks and balances.
As with any other grant program.
There's a committee of community development, or what was community development and planning, that would review all applications, and we would pick through them. And what do we support? What do we not support? What do we line item that we don't support? And then after those are approved, we notify the neighborhoods of what projects we approve of, and they have to submit associated receipts with those projects.
And if the expense is an acceptable expense, then they are reimbursed after the fact.
Correct. I approve that, submit it to finance, and then finance reimburse.
Which is the typical grant process.
Correct. Yep.
With these projects, in your opinion, and maybe it's not just based on opinion, but based on data, what kind of buy-in do you have from the neighborhood associations once they've been awarded a grant, an improvement in their neighborhood park or whatever the case may be?
Our first year we did this, we had 5 neighborhood associations at a tune of $10,000 trying to award. Now we have 22 neighborhood associations. We're seeing great things out of, I'd say, pretty much all of our neighborhood associations who are very active. The All Saints neighborhood, the Cathedral neighborhood, who are very active. We're continually seeing the numbers grow. The people that are involved continually grows. You'll even see their monthly meetings go from 12 people up to 25 people now that are regularly attending these. The increased participation has been paramount. You have people that are collectively talking about projects at neighborhood meetings and what they wish to do in the next year, what they hope to accomplish with the grant funding, rather than somebody complaining about their problem. And when you're at a meeting and somebody's complaining about a problem, and the next meeting somebody's complaining about a problem, the chances are you're not going to go to the next meeting because you don't want to hear about somebody's problem. But if you're actively engaged in talking about a project that's going to happen in your neighborhood, you're more inclined to show up, you're more inclined to participate, and you're more inclined to think about your neighbor, Bill, who makes the best brownies, who could support that project just by making the brownies, even though, Bill may have a hurt back.
Okay, and also by buy-in, I mean they're more likely to take ownership of the project as if it's theirs and not just city property.
Yep,
So if there's vandalism or damage or repairs that are needed, they're going to keep a closer watch on things of this nature.
That's correct, and that's what we've seen in Galway Park with the landscape enhancements, is because so many people feel like they have more at stake, more vested in that because they worked on that project. So their eyes are more focused on Galway Park and some of the challenges that they have there with teens.
So they do have some in-kind investment in terms of labor as well, too?
That's correct. Labor, we have in-kind matches. We also have pro bono services that are provided to these neighborhoods as well. And those are projects that we move up on the rating scale is those that have funding matches or in-kind contributions or volunteer labor. We really want that, that extra buy-in.
So,
absolutely.
And the savings to the city of Sioux Falls, we realize improvements throughout the city at less cost to the city because we don't have city employees actually performing the work.
Correct. Yep. Like the flagpole. I mean, we kicked in $2,000, but that was about an $8,000 project.
Very good. And in terms of a bouncy house, I guess if that's used as a carrot or the seed money to help an association get started, I'm all in favor of it. I think the payoff is you're going to see big dividends in the future.
Absolutely.
So, good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Adam? Go ahead, Councilor Brecky. Then we'll go Councilor Naitzer.
Questions. You know, as I'm hearing you speak, you know, again, initially when I was listening to some of Teresa's questions, you know, I was wondering if this might be an area that kind of needed some umbrella policy guidelines, you know, over it. But then as I heard you speak, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing you say is there's kind of a certain uniqueness to each of the neighborhood organizations and the kinds of, in the differences in the neighborhoods. So sometimes then when you do these broad umbrella things, it doesn't work because you need that individual, they're not cookie cutters, so you need that individual discretion, and you're using an in-house committee to vet through that and exercise that discretion. Is that kind of a fair statement of what I'm hearing?
That is a very fair statement. Each neighborhood is unique and has its own set of unique challenges and opportunities. So we can't fit them all into the same mold and say that's good for you.
I'm sorry, I do get what you're saying about the newer, younger neighborhoods. The goal for that neighborhood's different because you want that neighborhood to become a neighborhood. So it's not about adding enhancements probably because the neighborhood's already new. So it's more, so then on those neighborhoods, you're focusing more on the social functions and gelling that group and so that they can become an organization that can serve it into the future. Whereas in some of the older neighborhoods, you know, there actually are physical needs and demands, and you're trying to focus on those in those neighborhoods. So I kind of get the need for flexibility. On the one hand, I like policy and structure, and on the other hand, sometimes in government we have too much policy and structure, and then we hamstring ourselves, and we get too much fairness, then we really don't serve a good purpose. So I can kind of see the balance that you're trying to achieve there. I do have a question though, and it was kind of a follow-up to Christine's. You know, it's troubling to me that they should use this money, you know, for enhancing our parks, both the flagpole project and the other one project. You know, have you thought about when those needs emerge, you know, why aren't, you know, could they be, you know, addressed through the regular budget, you know, by the committee acknowledging them, recommending them, and coming up with a process to then recommend them to the Parks Department as part of the regular Parks Department budget. I mean, I'm not understanding exactly why the neighborhood had to spend $8,000 to get the flagpole up there if it's a historic flagpole. You know, why didn't we put it up ourselves? I mean, I remember when we put the Statue of Liberty back. I mean, that was just in the city's budget. So if they do the work of, you know, finding out about it and bringing the issue to us, you know, I'm just wondering why those permanent needs aren't put through our own process, and if there's an interest in that. It just hasn't been done. Why hasn't it been done?
I don't think I can answer that question because I don't know the answer, but what I do see as of lately is more participation and collaboration amongst departments, which will only be helpful moving forward. And our parks, our light team have all been great partners in our neighborhood project grant program. At first, you know, it's a balancing act when you're talking about enhancing a park, you know, so why are you here from community development talking about enhancing a park? But then after that, they see the need and the partnership that I have created with these neighborhoods, that this is an identified need of the neighborhoods. Then they're more inclined to work with the neighbors and work with me. And I think it's been a beautiful success story over the last 5 years.
Because I would tell you that is something I'm really interested in as a council member. I think the more that we can do to create good neighborhoods, it has so many trickle-down benefits, you know, in terms of the anti-crime, anti-drug kinds of potential. So I look at the budgeting for this and think it's under budgeted, but then when I see what you're able to do with what you've got, I see it as it's in its infancy, and I see a lot more potential there. But again, I would like to see it become an advisory role twofold, not only advisory to the neighborhoods themselves, but advisory to those city departments, you know, kind of in a like fashion like a risk management is. I mean, when risk management identify risks, they're given #1 priorities, you know, to the department, that they become #1 priorities, you know, through the other city departments. Maybe there's an opportunity for your organization to acquire that kind of status so that we could do even more for our neighborhoods.
We hope so.
Thank you.
Councilor Neitzer.
Okay, and again, I am for neighborhood improvement. Now, what I do want to ask though is there any consideration given towards, let's just say, what's going on in the neighborhood? And I'll just give an example. That if I was looking at 2 neighborhoods asking for the exact same thing, to me, if I saw a neighborhood that was distressed and had, you know, issues, maybe it be crime and you know, maybe code violations and things like that, versus a brand new neighborhood,
Yep.
I would, on balance, be trying to target some of those that are more distressed. So does any of that go into it? Because I would hope that you're really trying to hit those. But
Sure. So our neighborhood association involvement initially is routinely neighborhood associations or neighborhoods that are addressing problems. That's why people get together. Then they talk about addressing or having a crime watch, then going into an association. So we generally see the most involvement within our more challenged neighborhoods. And so we did not have the involvement of those neighborhoods outside the core. But as we routinely worked at it, we continually have more involvement outside the core. Neighborhoods that are just open to getting to know one another rather than they don't have challenges to address. And so that was very encouraging to our team, is that we have neighborhoods outside of challenging areas that are looking just to get to know their neighbor rather than the make of their car that they see drive down their street every day.
okay, so not to harp on it, but if I can get a balloon guy reimbursed, what could be not reimbursed? What have you maybe denied in the past, if I'm a qualifying organization?
Essentially food and beverage, not reimbursing for that.
Food and beverages?
Yep, but I mean, I could send a list of projects that were denied, whether because they did not meet the ordinance or codes of the city.
What does that mean, the ordinances or the codes of the city? They wanted to do something
like a signage project that did not work within the confines of a residential neighborhood, you know, things of that nature.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Councilor Staley.
Well, I'm so glad you brought up participatory budgeting, because I was at that National League of Cities convention in Pittsburgh 2 years ago, and I believe that they were talking about Chicago, and they gave each of their council members $1 million to work with. And the way that worked is that these people the council members would meet with their constituents and get feedback, each one, from what their citizens would like to see happen, and they were able to make decisions with that money and help each issue as it arose. So that's really cool. But taking this to a different place, I do want to see, I'm going to be asking and encouraging us to bring this program to more people and take away the association mandate. So like Councilor Neitzer said, if you got maybe a neighborhood with a lot of little children and you bring people together, and that could be an impetus maybe to start an association. but we can use this money in a way that's going to be beneficial to everybody. And also, I'm just looking through the documents that we have. I would just be very careful that every expenditure does have a receipt within it, so that we're not just somebody saying, well, and maybe there are. I don't see it. We didn't have it here, but just so that everything is.
If there's no receipt, nothing is reimbursed. And we've had people say, hey, I paid for this. It's like,
Okay.
I don't have a receipt. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's
And
where our finance department works.
I would like to see a cap on what we give. I think that would be more equitable, again, if it's a $2,000 limit. Just like community development, this is kind of similar. We got the community development program. Through your housing, people can apply. They can have their windows replaced, their furnace replaced, the plumbing replaced, and everything is evaluated, but that goes to across the city. So anybody can apply for it. So I will be, we will, once this is, if we pass this, I think I'm going to be broadcasting this to people that this is available. And the competitive part's a little concerning. What does that mean, competitive? You know, when we say we're competing with one another.
We had to make it competitive because we had 22, or at the time, you know, just 2 years ago, we had 24 neighborhood associations applying for $10,000. So while it would be nice to give everybody something, we had to kind of draw the line somewhere and fund projects that we thought were of a greater need or importance.
And I would disagree with Councilor Kiley that I think that bouncy house thing maybe is a little bit extravagant. And again, I know there's neighborhoods where these kids would just love to have that. You go up on that Hidden Hills apartment complex up there, they don't even have a playground in that apartment complex. There's water standing on the side of the road up there. Drive in there. But so they would love to have that bouncy house up there, but just making sure that we're, again, helping and servicing all of our people. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to move on to our departmental non-funded initiatives. I know we are all given a document showing some of the initiatives from the departments through that we've all had time to review over the last couple of weeks, as far as one-time versus ongoing, the total funds, where it's housed, things of that nature. And so I'm going to open it up in just a minute for that. One of the items I do want to draw your attention with, and I have asked Shelley Unruh with STI to be here, and you all received a packet in your mailbox as well as an email. And so looking at that one, I had a great conversation with she and her team, and wanted to have them come and not me try to explain it to you all, but her explain it along with some of the representatives. So I'll have her come and talk about that fast, and then we'll continue to ask questions and talk about the other departmental non-funded initiatives. So welcome, Shelley.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you about the Southeast Tech Now campaign. I would like to introduce to you the folks that I brought with me in support of this campaign. I have the president of Southeast Tech, President Bob Griggs, with us. And then I have my foundation chair, Bob Jarding, as well. And then also my campaign chair, co-chair, David Long with Sanford Health. And then Marlon Bergeson with Journey Group and Tony Knorr with First Premier. And the reason why I asked them to join me is this is a campaign that is very much driven by industry and focused around workforce. And it was in response to workforce that we created this program of work that I'm going to talk with you about today. So every one of my board members that are here with me today had a part in helping develop this campaign, and then are now helping me implement the campaign by going out and working with their co-leaders of the communities to secure that funding. But in that packet, I provided some detailed information. There's a full program of work booklet, and then there's also this little campaign summary, which is what I'm going to run through with you really quickly. But I think the important thing to note about the Southeast Tech Now campaign, the new opportunity in workforce development, is that every project that is proposed in this program has been funded in some way initially by Southeast Tech. So we have worked very hard to reallocate and administer our resources so that we can be very quick and responsive to the needs of not only our industry partners, but our community as well, and put as much as our emphasis as we could into the areas where we heard feedback from industry where there is need. So we have invested in every part of this plan, but we've invested to the point of max. So now that is why we're going out to the community and coming to you as the city, because we need additional support to continue all of the great work that we've started. So to take you back really quickly, Southeast Tech hosted a series of industry sector breakfast events. When President Griggs came to us, President Griggs is new and has been with us for about 2 years, but we really wanted to introduce him to the business community, so we invited those industry sectors on campus. We started with healthcare, then automotive, then construction, then manufacturing, with a business community. We even had a industry sector breakfast with high school counselors. And there were 3 questions that we asked each group. We asked them, what are we doing well? What do we need to improve on? And what are we missing? And there were some resounding themes that came out of every single sector breakfast event that we held, whether it was healthcare, construction, or manufacturing. They're very happy with the quality of graduates that we produce at Southeast Tech. Our students that graduate our technical institute are second to none, which is why we have 100% or nearly 100% pass rates on our LPN and RN boards. Our automotive program is 4th in the nation. So we provide a very highly trained, skilled workforce. But what we need is more of them, and that's what we heard from our industry partners. Well, your quality is right there, and we love the quality. We just need you to produce a lot more. The other thing that we heard is that there is concern about the growing diversity in our community, that the diversity is growing within our high school system, and that we as a community want to be embracing of that growing diversity and help them into education and into the workforce. So there's a want and a desire to focus really around diversity, and then also in collaboration and partnerships, creating new programs at Southeast Tech to meet the workforce needs. That maybe we don't need to create a full associate degree program or a diploma program, but maybe it's a short-term certificate program that we can create that will provide that entry-level based skills training needed to start some of these jobs that are very difficult for some of our industry partners to fill. So we have taken some really hard goals, and we've set ourselves against some really hard goals so that when we do and hopefully are successful in our campaign, in 5 years we can come back to all of our partners and say that because of your support, we increased the enrollment at Southeast Tech by 30%, and we went from 2,300 students to 3,000. We also want to be able to say in 5 years that we have doubled the amount of degrees conferred. So we are going to increase by 50% the degrees conferred, such as associate's degrees, diplomas, and or certificate type programs if that's what we end up creating. And then also that we want to grow the diversity on our campus. Right now about 10% of our students have a diverse background, and we want to grow that to 20%. So those are the hard standards within this campaign that we are going to hold ourselves to and report back on in 5 years when we're successful. But to break down some of I'll just kind of draw out a couple of the key initiatives from each of the parts of the campaign for you, and then open it up to any questions that you might have. But as far as increasing enrollment, one way that we really want to focus on is through a Citibank grant that we applied for, we were able to get a career coach that we embedded into the Sioux Falls School District in CTE Academy. That career coach placed 300 students out on internships and job shadows within our community last year. That career coach was also instrumental in helping us recruit 10 students to start our pre-apprenticeship carpentry program. This is a carpentry program for juniors entering into their senior year, where they were paid by a contractor $12.50 an hour to take classes at Southeast Tech in the morning and then go work for that contractor in the afternoon. So it was a learn and earn type of a program. The students graduated that program with some college credits. So the whole intent of this program was to show students between that junior and senior year, when they are trying to make a decision on what they want to do after high school, that a construction job can be a very profitable and very equitable choice in their life, and really exposing them to the different types of opportunity that are available to them in construction, and then hopefully incentive to invite others to participate in our program next year, and then consider coming to Southeast Tech for one of our relatable programs in the construction field. So it was really about reaching students at an integral point when they were trying to make the decision in that next stage of life, but also exposing them and dispelling some misconceived concepts they might have had about the construction industry. And I can proudly say that all 10 of those students that started with the contractor stayed with the contractor over the summer, graduated the program, and I think are probably going to go back to that contractor again. They all shared very good experiences. It was a diverse group of students that were in that program, and it was because of our career coach that we were able to successfully recruit. But the need is great with that career coach. That career coach for us impacts CTE Academy, but we also have many other school districts. We have Washington, Roosevelt, and Lincoln, and then we have the private high schools, as well as we also have the outlying schools that all impact the Sioux Falls workforce: T, Brandon, Harrisburg, Hartford, Canton, Del Rapids. I mean, you can name a million, or not a million, but a lot of school districts that all have workforce here in Sioux Falls, and could benefit from that career coach. Because as we know, our school counselors, and what we learned from them directly, actually, our school counselors in our high school systems are more focused on triage than they are on career development. So a lot of the social issues you see rising in our city exist within our Sioux Falls Schools District. So they're more focused on making sure that those high schoolers have food when they go home or the weekend, that they're not in a dangerous situation, and if they are, how can they work through that? Or maybe they have a parent in incarceration and working through that. So there are a lot more programmatic things that our counselors are focused on rather than career, and this is one way to really kind of help focus some of that career attention. So that's one thing that I would highlight that we would do as part of our campaign, is increase that opportunity so that we can touch more kids and develop more programs. When it comes to diverse student outreach, there's a program that I'll highlight that we've developed called Aspire to Tech. It's a program that is designed for students with a 5th to 8th grade reading level. And you can think of it sort of as a bridge program, but what it's really designed to do is to help people elevate their English language and comprehension skills through the focus of an industry lens. So rather than somebody learning through a regular math or an English textbook, our first cohort learned through a medical terminology textbook, spent some time in our CNA lab, and then we also did some soft skills training as far as what's the appropriate thing to wear to work, what time do you show up for work, how do you communicate with your coworker and your boss. So really developing those soft skills. So the intent of this Aspire to Tech program is to build these individuals' English language and comprehension skills, but do it with an industry focus so that when they do graduate that program, they could successfully enter into the workforce in that field, or they could enter into a place like Southeast Tech in that field. So the graduates from Aspire to Tech could come to our LPN program, or they could go work for one of our major healthcare facilities here in Sioux Falls and be productive. The way that we assess that is we do it through the National Career Readiness Assessment Test. So it's the NCRC or something like that. So it's a national assessment done, but a silver level rating indicates that that student would be successful in either an educational environment or a workplace environment. So our goal is that every person that goes through Aspire to Tech will graduate with a silver star rating. We've also had conversations with Judge Howman through the drug court program, because the drug court program has never had, to my knowledge, an educational component to it. But lining up Aspire to Tech would give opportunities for people that graduate or go through that drug court program to also step back into some education that will give them some base skills training to maybe find a better job than they would have had an opportunity for, or prepare them to advance their education and come to Southeast Tech. Maybe they never finished their high school degree, or maybe it's been a while since they've been in education. And this is a great way to brushing up and refresh those skills. So that's another component that we see as a great diversity play. We also had, because there's a large group, I mean, this would be open to anybody really that has the 5th to 8th grade reading level, but it would naturally attract, I think, a more diverse population. And then we also had a Learners to Leaders program at Southeast Tech that was ran through the high school system, but students got to take classes at Southeast Tech. And it was just a great way to inspire students that education is an option for them, for students that wouldn't have normally chose that through our Learners to Leaders program. So that's another opportunity that we're looking for under that. And then in strengthening our industry connections, we want to continue to create pathways for education. And that pre-apprenticeship carpentry program is one example of how we've been able to do that. But we can do that more if we had some funding to be able to be a little bit more nimble. And when these opportunities come, we want to be able to respond and respond quickly with working collaboratively with industry to create that programming to meet their workforce needs. And the best, I think, example of that is the pre-carpentry apprenticeship program, where we worked alongside a group of contractors to develop that curriculum from start to finish, how we marketed the program, how we implemented the program, and then all celebrating together in the success through the graduation here just about a month ago.
Sorry. Thank you, Shelley. Appreciate the overview of this item that was put on our initiatives, and so wanted to hear more about the ask, what it was to offer. I'll open it up to questions to Shelley in regards to this program, if anyone has any, or any of the other items on the list. Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Shelley. Great presentation. And, you know, looking at your objectives of increasing enrollment by 3,000 students, I mean, that's not just a benefit to Southeast Technical Institute, but that's a benefit to the community as well. Can you expand on that a little further?
Yes. Well, the benefit not just to Southeast Tech, but the benefit to the community at large is that's an increase in population that is coming to our city. The majority of our students at Southeast Tech do work either full-time or part-time. What makes us a little bit unique and different than the other technical institutes in the state is that about 43% of our students are non-traditional students. So we do have a higher incidence of part-time students that come to Southeast Tech versus full-time kids coming right out of high school. So our students are productive members of society, contributing to the economic development and growth of Sioux Falls.
I also appreciate your efforts with diverse students and providing them with the tools needed for employment, which is, again, another resource that, to a large degree, in my opinion, is an untapped resource here in the city of Sioux Falls. And if I may, I'm glad that you brought board members with you that represent industry and business, and I'd like to have one or two of them just comment on the impact that these programs have had on your businesses or your industry. Not to put you on the spot, but...
I warned them that might happen, so...
And I just want to make a quick statement to the council that I know we are close for time. I don't see anyone here for public input, so we can go a little bit longer for the time. And Tony will need at least a 10-minute turnaround time. If we do need to schedule an additional working session, we do have the opportunity to schedule that on Tuesday, because I don't want to rush any of you, and I know there's other things that are important as well. So just putting that out there. Welcome. State your name for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Bob Jardy, and I'm Vice President of Electric Supply Company, and also the Foundation Board President. So after our construction sector breakfast, we had a focus meeting, and the focus of that discussion was upon getting high school students interested in the construction trades, which is a large part of our economy, as you know, in our city. So we had a few hurdles to climb. One of them was to be able to get a student in high school on a commercial job site and be able to cover them with insurance properly. because of the, our assumption was they had to be 18 years old. What STI did for us was step up and create a registered apprenticeship program with the DOL, which allowed us to hire a 16-year-old student and cover them properly with insurance and put them on a job site. So the other hurdle we had to cross was to convince parents that it's safe to bring their 16-year-old child onto a job site and let them get exposed to the trades. And STI stepped up again and said, we'll create a portion of this summer program of classroom. So we were able to, through the AGC, helping with some of it, we were able to pay these students $12.50 an hour for 400 hours. And that's a pretty nice offer for a junior in high school. 160 hours in class, 240 on the job. And it was really successful to get these students involved.
Thank you. I mean, it sounds like a good deal to me, education as well as payment for what you're doing on the job training.
Absolutely. The students were really excited. We're hoping to double that number next year and have 20 students, maybe even 30, to keep it growing.
Bob, as I speak with contractors around the city, I often hear that one of their biggest challenges is finding qualified workers. Can you address that?
It is. The trades have kind of taken a beating through the recession, with the job loss that, we're building, working that back. And, as we all know, we all encourage our students, our children, to pursue a higher education, and even whether maybe or not they're right for it. And what we just want to do is show some of these students that, hey, it's not, it could be what they're made for. They have an interest, but they don't know how to go about it till it's too late. And if they wait till their senior year, usually that decision's made. We've got to get them exposed a little younger.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob. And I know that, some might ask, is this a city responsibility to fund workforce development programs? Well, or, because I do know that there's a lot of other people with skin in the games. We've got business, we have industry, we've got our public school districts, and we have 7 or 8 school districts just within the city of Sioux Falls, and our universities that are all addressing this too. So I would like to go a little further that would say, yes, the city does have an interest in this, and we should be playing a role in this as well too. And I think it's something that I hope that my colleagues will consider as we move forward in this. I'm not going to monopolize any more time.
Councilor
Thank you very much, Bob.
Thank you. The one last comment I want to make is through this campaign and through the process of the apprenticeship program, it's been really interesting to watch how we can get businesses, not just from the construction industry, but to get the community more wrapped around STI and the great institution we have here in the community. I mean, if, to compare a little west of us and a little north of us, those communities really back their vocational school more than ours does. And we need to keep, we need to recognize the great institution we have out there and build upon it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Neitzer.
I will try to be quick as well. I did read your materials. They really did resonate with me. There's a lot of things that kind of hit some things that I keep hearing and things that I've experienced. One of the things is so many people in the trades and industry, they say we need more workers, and part of that is fed into that is from my generation as a Gen Xer. Everybody was told you have to go to college, you have to go get a 4-year degree, you got to go get a 4-year degree, and that's not necessarily right for everybody. And as I talk to some of them in the trades, they're going, we can pay $80, $90, $100,000, if it's an electrician or a plumber, and somebody with a 4-year degree might be working at Starbucks, no offense, but. So, and I have a 4-year degree, so that's not the point. But so that really resonated. I wanted you to talk a little bit about what this will do as far as keeping people in the community, in terms of kids who might go off somewhere else because there's not an opportunity here, and then they never come back, and that sort of thing. Because I think that's an important piece as well.
Sure, and I actually have data that shows that of the students that graduate from Southeast Tech, 75% do stay local. And I think a really big part of that is because we are an institution that works hard to find opportunities for our students. So many of the students that graduate from Southeast Tech will have a job and will know where they're going before they graduate, most of the time within the first couple of semesters. So if you're looking to employ a second year soon-to-be graduate of Southeast Tech, more than likely they're already employed somewhere else because our students are snatched up that fast. And they do tend to stay local. So the only time I think that we really see loss as far as we do draw from a 100-mile radius. So some students want to go back to their community that they came from and they don't want to live in Sioux Falls. But once we get them here, we retain them. And a great example that a personal story I can share is we had a plumbing student come to Southeast Tech because she lives in Hudson, South Dakota, and a water main broke in her house, and she couldn't get anybody to come fix it. So she came to Southeast Tech on a Build Dakota scholarship, became a plumber, went back home and fixed it herself, but got a great job at Smithfield Foods in their boiler and is maybe not going to move back to Hudson to be their town and plumber like her original intent was. So we do a good job because we have opportunity, but I think that they work hand in hand. In order to grow our business, you have to have a workforce to supply that business. So if we want to grow the workforce opportunity in Sioux Falls, we also need to grow the opportunity to grow that workforce. And Sioux Falls, the city of Sioux Falls also benefits directly from Southeast Tech because a number of city employees come from Southeast Tech. Over the years, we've placed 35 of our graduates with the city of Sioux Falls in a variety of different areas, from diesel to computer programming and IT, even into finance. So through all layers of the city of Sioux Falls in employment, you'll see Southeast Tech graduates.
I would just close, and thank you. I would just close by saying that I also think workforce development is very important, and I would be interested also in supporting something like this. And maybe what we could do is take a look at the various initiatives and figure out what might make most sense for us as a city, and identify one or more of those, and maybe we can earmark that. So,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor Brecky, and then we'll do Selberg, then Staley.
That was a nice segue for me, because where I'm coming at this, and the questions that I have are about, as this diverse population, enters our community, and I liked what I saw on that you're understanding the significance of that as well, and the importance of getting skills to this first generation of immigrants that are coming in. I've always thought that English, speaking English well is critical to that. And the question that I have for you is, for those immigrants that want to learn a skill at the same time they want to improve or get appropriate English skills, is there any kind of programming that addresses that issue? I know you have classes out there, but I'm wondering if you've considered that possibility. And I would drop that idea out to the entire city council as a segue to what Greg just said. That's an appropriate place, I believe, for the city government to be involved, to the extent that we could, embark on something that helps increase the English-speaking population in our community. I think is a citywide. It's something that benefits us citywide. So tell me what you're doing, and if you're tagging into what I'm saying about when I hear about how you can become a carpenter at the same time you work at becoming a carpenter, is there ways that they can be skilled at the same time that they improve English and improve their English or get the English skills they need so that they can further advance themselves here?
Yeah, we do have the Hovland Learning Center that does address a number of those things, and then Aspire to Tech is another step forward in helping them develop their language skills while learning a skill in a trade. But really, I think what you're touching on is what we want to develop, called the Center for Opportunity and Workforce. And the Center for Opportunity and Workforce really is a collaboration between education, nonprofits, hopefully city government, so that we're all working together for one focused initiative rather than working on the same topic but in silos. So if we can bring each of us together all at the same table and then create those pathways to success so that they're flowing very fluidly through a pathway from one organization to the next to successfully complete an education or enter into the workforce. But it takes a collaboration between maybe the university center, the other universities here in Sioux Falls, city government, nonprofit organizations that work directly with those individual groups, where we can all come together and work on that plan to help them navigate the system fluidly and put them on that path for success.
I'm going to take it one step further and give you my card afterwards. I would be interested in working with you on that. I have also had conversations with Dr. Maher about the fact that, literally hundreds of English classes are taught every day. How can we capture those in some electronic form and distribute them in a way that's easily accessible, to our immigrant and cost effective or free to our immigrant population? So that ties into what you're saying. I see it as a bigger initiative as well, but I do see you guys as a very serious player in that, in getting that readily accessible part. So I'd like to give you my card afterwards and, see where it takes us.
Thank you.
Before we go to Councilor Selberg, is there any public comment at this time? I need to make sure we fulfill our public comment. If not, we will continue on with council discussion. Seeing none, Councilor Selberg.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Always been a big fan of Southeast Tech, and I agree with the sentiment. This is something the city should obviously be involved in. The benefit to our city as a whole and our workforce development is obvious here. A couple quick questions. I know you'd said you'd asked the industry a few questions. What are we doing well? What do we need to improve on? And I think they said your quality is terrific. You just need more of it. Was there some more feedback as far as one or two other things that stuck out there that I maybe didn't hear? What do you need to improve on, or what are you looking for?
Yeah, and actually, I'd like to invite up President Griggs to answer that question, because I think President Griggs can elaborate on that really well.
Terrific.
Sure. Thank you, Shelley. Bob Griggs, President at Southeast Tech. Chair Erickson, council members, again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I think I'm just going to defer to Shelley from now on for all future public discussion. She did a great job, I think, with that overview. One of the comments that we heard, I think, from industry very loudly and across sectors. So again, manufacturing, business sector, finance, healthcare, so forth, that we need to do a better job of conveying the opportunity that Southeast Tech presents, but more importantly, I think the careers in the technical fields represent, that they're not only good jobs, they're great career opportunities for students. So much of the comments that were made earlier about, the pathway to a four-year is a great pathway and has provided, numerous opportunities, but not everyone is prepared at the outset to begin that. And to start on that pathway. So we were challenged, I think, quite strongly to do a better job of connecting up with the Sioux Falls School District, not only at the high school level, but at the middle school level and so forth, as far as presenting opportunities and raising awareness. I think Tom Kelly, president of Gage Brothers, talked about changing perceptions in terms of what we need to do and what we should be focused on as part of our workforce mission. So we've taken that very seriously, and the grant that Shelley mentioned that we went after with Citibank, we were very fortunate, national grant opportunity, and we were awarded to place that first career coach. I think it was such a great opportunity that the governor's office has now moved forward and is funding some additional career coaches across the state to do similar types of tasks and so forth. So a lot of good things there. I think, again, the strongest, the part I got out of it probably most was on diversity, that especially within Sioux Falls, Southeast Tech has some unique opportunities there with the Hublin Learning Center, the ability with our ESL programs to integrate ESL into workforce directly, and that we need to do a better job there. So you'll see much of the information that's been presented to you has been on that particular focus. And again, that we brought forward an initiative and we're limiting it to healthcare. And we had representatives like Dave Rosenblum from First Premier that said, "You're thinking too small. We need to look at this in a collaborative setting. It isn't just Southeast Tech, it's the University Center in Southeast Tech and the Sioux Falls School District and industry, and we'd love to have the city of Sioux Falls as a partner." So thank you.
And I think that ties into what my other point was. I think that shadow program, these apprentice programs where you really are opening the eyes of kids, where they're going into areas and, again, opening their eyes to things they never even thought of and thought, wow, that's a career. I think that's terrific too. And my other question to that was almost on with the point you just hit. Was it in the career coach that came on board that kind of started this? Is there need for another one of those or more of those here? Are you talking statewide? Or?
Well, it has expanded to a statewide initiative now within the governor's office. So we are looking to keep that very coordinated, though, with Southeast Tech and also our rural communities. So that'll be part of our outreach as well. This individual has worked well within the Sioux Falls School District, but we want to also get out to Harrisburg and T and other smaller communities where we can convey that same message.
Terrific. Thank you.
Councillor Staley.
First of all, some of us were able to attend a chamber event last week where Christy Noem was speaking, and she brought up the tech schools, she brought up apprenticeship. So, and I'm assuming Billy Sutton will be having the same dialogue as well. So I do believe we're going to have added resources and support moving forward. You are supported by the school district, correct? You're getting some funding from the school district?
No, we actually don't receive any funding from the school district at all.
You're not affiliated with the school district then?
We are affiliated with the school district and that they are the governing body of Southeast Tech. So we are governed by the Sioux Falls School Board, but we don't receive any funding. The support that we receive from the Sioux Falls School District is in an administrative role. So we have some shared human resource functions as far as they help us out with that side of the things, help us out with payroll and some of the budgetary things. But as far as a line item of funding from the Sioux Falls School District to Southeast Tech, there is not one.
Well, and I think your custodian work is
yes, yep, and it's those support services, so that we get from.
Operational costs are,
yes,
are
yep.
given. Okay. So my question is, and this isn't for you necessarily, but now my understanding is we have $100,000 that we're getting to work with as a council. Very exciting, first time in 2 years since I've been on the council, and before that I paid a lot of attention to the meetings, never heard of this kind of a thing before. So it's very exciting. I'm hoping as we move forward, we get to have even more input into how things are divvied up within each department. So my question, and I'll go back to last year, we had several nonprofits who wanted money from us, and these nonprofits came to the table like you did today, and they presented their proposals. They gave us the reasons why we should keep them in the budget. So first of all, I'm wondering who brought you to the table today?
I invited her to come based on this being on the non-funded initiatives because it was a non-departmental, and so I had asked her to come.
Okay, so you brought her, but you haven't been funded by us before.
No.
So this is a new thing.
Yes.
And I see you're asking for a 5-year contract?
This was their ask for the initiatives. This is, I think, in a best case scenario, this is what they would love to do, but they understand that we as a council decide to fund it fully, not fund it at all. It might not make it this year.
Are you proposing that we give them, like we did with the Forward Sioux Falls, we gave them 5 years contract?
At this point, there has not been anything written up. This is an information for everyone to decide.
Okay. So there could be possibly other entities that would like to apply for this as well.
Well, it's none that came forward to the administration and asked to be on the non-funded.
Right.
I'm sure there's a lot of other people that would love to have additional funding.
Well, yeah, and I'm not sure that the public was aware that this was something that we're going to have extra money for.
But let me remind you.
Nothing against you, and I certainly, nothing against the VOTEC. My brother went to school there. I think it's fabulous. I think we were on a track of giving energy there. But in fairness to our community, you've been able to give us a great presentation here, and I'm not sure who else was aware of it or came to the table. Now, I also was thinking, and nothing against you, but this is, we were talking to our budget person, and this is operational money, so I was thinking we were kind of going to be doing some brainstorming about other ways we might want to spend that $100,000. Is that correct?
That is where we're going next, and I did make a statement that we can have an additional work session. I've worked with our city clerk, and we have some...
Even beyond what's on this list here.
And that's for anyone to decide at any point. If anyone here has an idea that I know speed trap signs are important to you, if that's something that you wanted to have added or talked about.
I'll just throw this out right now, because Councilor Kiley and I actually had this discussion a few weeks ago. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but we were talking about how it would be neat to have someone at Falls Park as like a visitor assistant, and that would be something that could be funded, a part-time person who could be, and this is apart from what you're asking for. So, so something to think about there that is not funded. Another thing is reinstating some, or developing some funding citywide for the Scoop It program. That was discontinued last year because the state was paying for that. Did you know that? Yeah, you look like you're going to bite me. Okay, the state was paying for that, and so they discontinued that, and I think having that within our budget to have a part-time person to help with the inmates to Scoop program would be great. And then the last thing, and Councilor Kiley, you made mention of this, is maybe using some of this money to have instigate a program where we would help people with Project Trim. Because that would be operational, they'd be able to apply for it, and then that would alleviate that. So those are some things I'd like to talk about, and maybe other people have that as well. And also, one more thing if I want to say, we've talked about moving forward after this budget's over, that we are going to be able to, within a council format, like a working session, sit down and put our ideas out about things we'd like to see in the budget early on, so that we have some input. We're not at the end of the train trying to get a hold of the engine at the beginning. So I think that's going to be really exciting, and that participatory budgeting thing could become a realization for us.
Councilor Starr, and then we'll go Kylie since you talked, sorry.
Thank you, Councilor Erickson. I was looking, I think staff's put up our list that we received from the administration of non-funded initiatives, at least as a place to start. When we asked them, well, what didn't get funded after the mayor's budget proposal? And one really stood out to me that I'm shaking my head about, that I'm trying to understand, is that it's the armor for SWAT for bomb technicians. That are we sending out SWAT officers without armor, and it's a $7,000 expenditure? I'm trying to figure out if that even made the list. It's embarrassing to even put that on the list.
So right now, when a bomb squad member goes out on a SWAT call, they wear their full, I mean, if you've seen the movie, was it The Hurt Locker? The full-on suit, that's what they're wearing right now. This would be a more nimble suit, so it'd be a little bit easier for them to move around in a SWAT situation, but they are fully protected when they go out on a call right now.
It's an interesting list, and I look forward to getting through the rest of it, I guess, is when we have more time, because I'm thinking we're just about done.
We have about 3 minutes. Councilor Kiley.
Thank you very much. I would suggest to my fellow councilors that I know that there's been a focus on the $100,000 discretionary funds. However, we're looking at a multi-million-dollar budget that we control. And so if there are initiatives that we identify that we feel are worthy, it is well within the power of this council to pass those initiatives. And then it would be up to the departments to make the adjustments that they need to. So I would suggest we don't focus just on $100,000. We should be focusing on the entire budget. And that's it.
But if I may respond, my understanding is that if we start reaching into the budget as it's presented, we have to find that money somewhere else. So we have to make cuts to what they've proposed. That's why this is a little different, because this is in a sense free money. It's non-designated money. So yeah, going in, I've worked with that before, where you try to say, well, I think I'm going to put this in, and you get somebody to second that amendment, and then we'll take this out of the park department and we'll shimmy this over here. That is not well received by those department heads. Okay, so it's not such an easy task. I'm just.
May I?
Yeah.
And I would agree. It's not easy, and I'm not certain that we are the best qualified to be doing that. The department heads would be better at making a determination what their priorities are once they learn what I guess the amount of money that they have to work with. I'm not certain that we are the experts in that area.
We've done that in the past, where we did kind of rob Peter to pay Paul, so to speak, I'll say. And I know that a few of the department heads were in the back gasping, having a very hard time with that.
That's right.
And I understand that is not, but we have to stay above 25%. And for us to stay above 25%, this $100,000 is that. In years past, it has been there. We've chosen to not spend it. We've chosen to maybe have 26, 27, 28% and not just maintain that minimum threshold of 25%. And so this is that amount. And I think what Councilor Kiley, not to speak for you, but instead of us saying, here's what we're going to do and us doing it to them, us saying, here's our priorities, here are the lists that we want to have funded, figure out where you want to cut and what makes sense, so we don't just come in and say, clip here, clip there, and
Exactly. And I guess, nothing against department heads, but I think they're sometimes they've got a view, and maybe the community might have a little different view. So we're all in this together. So I agree with that. Telling them on the front end, these are some of the things we're hearing about. Maybe they can mix that into the batter and have some chocolate chips and some walnuts in the cake.
I did speak to Tom. I just want to bring up that I don't want to rush us because I don't feel like we've had enough time today. I think we probably need to have another conversation. 1 second, Councilor Brecky. We can maybe do an additional work session next Tuesday. I know we're all very busy. This budget time really is trying on all of our schedules and work schedules. I recognize that. But we could do 2 or 2:30 next Tuesday. We can kind of talk offline a little bit and see if that's something that works amongst ourselves. I know other days are difficult and Tuesdays generally work for most, but we'll talk about that offline. But I do feel, hearing you all talk, we do need more time to have another public conversation about this list, and this would also give us the opportunity to bring forth any actual proposals, and hearing that. Councilor Brecky.
Well,
and then we have to close.
Just want to weigh in on it. I mean, the mayor's budget is a recommendation to the council. The council has final authority over the budget and the CIP. We need to get out in front of it, which we're trying to do, and it's hard to do, in an election year. So we understand that we're somewhat saddled, but we absolutely, like Councilor Kiley said, we need to get out in front of it with our initiatives. And to me, the respectful way to deal with the recommended budget is exactly that. Here's our list. We represent these constituents. They're talking to us. They're expecting some response from us on the budgetary side. And there's 8 of us. So there's 8 of us. They're hearing from 8 different groups of constituents. And their expectation is that we have input on that budget. But in a respect to the mayor and his staff, we need to get those in front in an initiative form and say, you guys deal with it. Here's our top 12. And we don't want to tell you, how to make it fit, but you make it fit, because you need to place our priorities in the budget, because we are part of this process and the final say over the process. So I would just weigh in on that. And then I think maybe a way to develop the list on such a short hour is to bust down in groups of 4 and 4, and come up with some ideas on a 4 and 4 basis, and then sit down publicly and discuss the 2 packets. And that would allow us, to bounce ideas off of each other in a format where we'd have, kind of enough, to have amendments. So I think that would be a way to, because I've got several ideas, but I was just shocked today when we had no amendments, but I just didn't understand, it's just the way it's happening, I think, because it comes so fast after the new election. But I think that would be a good way for us to, to generate some ideas, and then bring them to the full group and discuss and prioritize.
Agreed. We will stay tuned. Public will let you know when we are scheduling the next one. I apologize for racing through a lot of this. We certainly need more time. With that said, I will adjourn this meeting, and our 4 o'clock informational will start in about 10 minutes. Thank you.